Sausage.
Hello, and welcome to Tack the Backlog, the podcast where I, Mark Kuznez, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. This episode is all about Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I hate that title. This is also episode 2, by the way, if you've not realized by the title or the fact that there is an episode about this already. This is episode 2 for Jedi Survivor and the final episode. But I hate the title because I want to think it's Star Wars Jedi Survivor. That's the title, but I mean Star Wars Jedi Survivor and not Star Wars Jedi Survivor. There's just something about that really annoys me. But this is the second and final episode for Survivor. I am wearing a different Star Wars themed shirt. This time it's a sweatshirt. I'll show you in color. Not much difference. It's gray, but it's a Rebels sweatshirt. And I like it quite a bit. It's very comfy. Ugh. We're off to a great start. But the thing is, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is way too fucking long. I completed it yesterday after spending maybe 25 hours in it, and it is about 10 hours too long. It overstays its welcome very quickly. Not exactly very quickly. I'd say at around 15 or so hours in, I was still enjoying it, but I was getting to the point where I was ready to call it a game and move on. But the game itself had a different plan, a different story to tell. I know part of this is on me because I cannot help myself from interacting with every character who has something new to say every time it's available in any game, not just this game. But in here, whenever I would return to Cobalt and it would tell me, there are people in the bar with some new things to say, I would go to the bar and interact with each and every one of them. And sometimes they would have new, valuable information that would lead to a new side quest opening, which I didn't partake in too. So don't think that inflated my experience at all. I only accidentally did one dungeon-esque area because I wanted to get a stim upgrade that was inside a house. So I figured, okay, I'm going to go in the basement and that'll lead me back up to where I need to go. And then it just kept going deeper and deeper. And I never ended up getting that stim upgrade over the course of my playthrough. But I just can't help but talk to everyone, which is just really going up to people and then having them talk at you for a certain amount of time until you exhaust every conversation. And when you do this, you'll get the important stuff. And when you know it's important, or how you know it's important, is when the camera focuses on them. And when the camera doesn't move at all, you know they have nothing more important to say. But they'll usually say goodbye twice. So they'll say, oh, you know what? I don't think I have anything else left to say. We'll talk again next time. And then they have an action available again one more time, which is just, okay, bye. It's like, fuck it. Why did I need 2 versions of goodbye? One was enough. All right. But that is on me. I fully take the blame for bloating my playthrough through my inability to restrain myself from interacting with every single person. But to that point, though, as I said, they sometimes have new side quests and stuff to do, so it's not completely devoid of value interacting with the NPCs. Though it would be nice if you could skip the dialogue, if it was more of a distinct, this is a dialogue section, but instead it's just you push in the right analog stick, then they start talking. You can't do anything to affect the conversation outside of walking away. And I'm assuming that if you walked away, they'd be like, oh, all right, that was real shitty of you. But if you come back and engage with me again, I'm going to act like you didn't do anything, like we didn't even have that conversation. I'm going to start from the beginning. There's also a fisher you find eventually pretty late in the game who will add fish to your little aquarium in your bar, but he talks your ear off. Every time he gets you a new fish, he's just like, I have a little tale to tell you. And the tale goes on for 5 fucking minutes. And that may not seem like a lot, but trust me, when you're just pressing a button to interact with them and then standing there with no kind of dynamic camera angles or anything, it's just you standing there, putting the controller down, listening to a fucking banana in an astronaut outfit talk at you. It can get a little frustrating. But it's just too long. It goes on and on and on. And those last few nights of playing were really hard to get through because I was done with the game. I was ready to be done. I was ready to move on. And the game had a different idea of when to say, this is enough. The combat never quite clicked with me, even up until the end. I still feel like the dodging especially is off. And there were more enemies where it felt like, even when they flashed red, this is an issue with the first game, but even when they flash red, dodging doesn't do shit. Unless maybe you have to time it really, really perfectly, so it's less of a dodge and more of a parry that's just a dodge, in which case, fucking, I don't want that. But there was one big hulking enemy who had like a giant hammer, and sometimes it would smash it down in front of them and let out a shockwave type of attack. And if you didn't dodge far enough to the side, it would always hit you. And no matter how I tried to dodge out of the way, it never worked. So what I ended up doing was every time I saw them about to do this attack, I would jump instead. And that worked. And then I said to myself, well, what is the point of dodging? Why don't I just jump? But that doesn't always work either. It's just a frustrating combat system. And then the parrying, just timing wise, never. I feel like part of it is the fact that any game that really focuses on parrying, where that is the end all be all, dodging is possible with regular enemies, but parrying is really the way to go. I think, and this might be a hot take, I don't know, but if you're going to be a game that is heavily reliant on parrying, encourages parrying, focused around parrying, I think you should not throw 6 to 10 enemies at you at one time. It should be a more one-on-one type of system. Because when you are engaging with 10 enemies at the same time, maybe 4 of them at a distance shooting at you, and then 6 are coming at you all at the same time, close range. It becomes a mess of trying to parry enemies and avoid attacks because it's just everything's coming at you. It's so fast. So if you're just parrying all the time, you're never getting an attack in. So it became incredibly frustrating dealing with a lot of encounters in the game. I just wish it felt better, and it never did. It felt a little off from the first game, and that disappointed me. I still enjoyed it, but it just I don't know. I don't know. The story really pissed me off in the end. I was having an all right time with it because I think the characters in the game are a big improvement over Fallen Order. But as I said in the last episode, the first episode, I lost the string of the main quest, the main mission, and that never really changed. But then you have a big reveal near the end, which I'm going to spoil here because obviously this is what this is. When it is revealed that Bode is a piece of shit, I was like, fine, makes sense. Sure, him being a traitor, I get, that's fine with me. But then 10 seconds later, when it is revealed that he is also a former Jedi and he could use the Force, I was like, hold the fucking phone here, everyone. What the fuck are we doing here? What the fuck is this shit? I did not like that at all. My opinion never changed. And for the rest of my playthrough, I just wanted to kill the shit out of him, and I wanted to kill his daughter. But now it looks like, well, fuck, the daughter is my new apprentice, and that's what the next game is going to be about. You also start dealing with the dark power. What is it called? It's not the dark light. You're Sith. It's just dark powers? That doesn't sound right at all. The dark side. Jesus Christ. I'm losing my mind. But you start battling with the dark side after the betrayal by Bode, because Bode is one of your close friends. He says to his daughter, this is my best friend. And I'm like, fuck, I'm going to kill you, you son of a bitch. And eventually you do get to kill him. You fight as Seer a bit too, which was interesting, but something I didn't really care about because I was already at the point where I was checked out and ready to end the game. And I thought, ooh, maybe we're getting close to the end now. And that's the thing. There's so many instances where it felt like you were building up to the end. And then it was like, no, you still got a handful of hours left. And then you build up to another point that feels like it could be the end. And no, it just keeps building and then falling down. Building and falling down. It's like, okay, stop falling down. Just get there and go to the end. I think part of it is the structure. Thinking back now, between Survivor and Fallen Order, I prefer so much about Fallen Order. And for the pairing and stuff like that, I did play on the default difficulty. I never adjusted anything. I could have adjusted the pairing window for me. I could have lowered the difficulty, of course, but I stuck with the default difficulty. But I think, having now finished Survivor, I prefer everything about Fallen Order except one, visuals, much improved. I almost say much improved, but they are improved. The cast of characters is better, and a lot of the story bits are better in the way it's handled, but I prefer the more focused structure and having more planets to go to and explore in a more designed feeling way, because you have these giant open areas in a handful of planets, but you don't do a lot of exploring in Survivor, whereas in Fallen Order I felt like I was seeing a lot of distinct different planets, and that felt exciting. Every time the story would progress and it would move into another planet, I would get excited because I knew I was going to see something different. And then here, you're constantly returning back to Cobalt to do something. And there are a lot of unique areas to Cobalt, but I'm still in Kobo and I'm feeling that. So moving it to having these bigger areas full of side activities, it just didn't feel right for this game, this series. But the real big issue with the game ultimately is the fact that it's just too fucking long. It is so loaded. It just goes on and on and on. I love the fact that there's the fast travel system, and another thing that's nice compared to Fallen Order. So the things that I think would have made Fallen Order by far a better game than Survivor is if they had the fast travel system, because that really kills it, and the fact that while you are exploring a lot of new areas and going through these big sections of areas, like in Cobalt, where you go to a base or something that feels very distinct, one of the things it does that's very Souls-esque is that you will start an area, and you're getting shortcuts constantly too, which is always satisfying. But typically, when you're going through a new area, you would have your starting point, and then while you're exploring it and doing whatever it is you're doing, you will eventually wrap around back to the starting point. So that while the fast travel system is there, it's really just there for things to be easier when you've completed the game and are looking to mop up collectibles and stuff like that. Because the game is constantly guiding you to where you need to go and not at any point making you backtrack through something you've just gone through where there's nothing to do, which is what Fallen Order constantly made you do, because it was more linear where you would go all the way deep into a level and then it doesn't wrap around back to the beginning. There may be some shortcuts that make it a little bit shorter, but you're ultimately following a path that dead ends and then turning around and going backward, as opposed to a track, a loop, which is how a lot of the design in Survivor is, which is nice. But it's a giant track with too many loops. You're looping around it too much. So in the end, I still had an overall all right time. But the more it went on, the more sour my opinion got. So I'm not going to say that I disliked my time with it, but I think after all is said and done, it's probably, because I am bringing back the review scores for these things as well, these Attack the Backlog episodes for the final episode. I think I'll give it I didn't think about this too hard, but I think I'd give it a 7 out of 10. 6 seems too harsh for the qualities and highs of the game. There are a lot of great elements to it, but it just is really padded. So padded. And I blame part of the parrying issues on me, because the more I played, the more annoyed I got, or the more annoyed specifically I got with the elongation of the experience, the more impatient I got. And a parrying system that is all about timing, it requires patience. And so while I do think it didn't feel quite right, the longer I went on, the more I became part of the problem as well. But I still think there's a lot of good there. Being able to customize, that's another thing. There are so many ways in which this game expands stuff that is appreciated, but it's also so extra, so much that I ended up engaging with things less. You can customize Cal, but the Cal stuff isn't that bad, because it's just, here's some more outfits. I found something I liked and I stuck with it, but the degree of customization for BD1 and your lightsaber and then the gun you get is a lot. So much that I was like, okay, let me just find something that works and I'll move on. And then that also reminds me of one last thing that I find an issue with the parrying system. And that is the fact that you can't cancel out of an attack or parry out of an attack or dodge out of an attack. And that was very frustrating, especially when I realized I committed to the crossguard stance and eventually realized I made the wrong decision there. And what really pisses me off is that I found out much later that there is one stance where you can parry out of an attack, and that is the dual wielding stance. However, I don't think that should be locked to a singular stance. I'm assuming the justification, the reason is because you're using two lightsabers, so you can be attacking with one, and then the reason why you'd be able to parry out of an attack is that you have that additional lightsaber that you can bring up to guard with. But I feel like you're doing a lot of attacks where you're attacking with both lightsabers at the same time, so that doesn't make entirely a whole lot of sense. But I just wish that is how the game works, because it becomes frustrating when you are constantly getting hit because you are in an attack animation and you can't parry out of it. You can't dodge out of it. You're always committed to that attack. And that makes combat just a little bit frustrating. I've said frustrating a lot in this episode because there's quite a bit of this game that is frustrating. But I think more so than that, really, it is the fact that they throw so many enemies at you at one time And that feels more geared towards a hack and slashy type of action game. Something like a Devil May Cry or whatever, a stylish action game where you have these wide sweeping attacks and it's much more fast and fluid. But this feels way more intentional with its combat. And when you are fighting against a singular opponent, the parrying feels much better because it's just you and this other opponent, and then you feel the intensity of that one-on-one battle. So boss fights, when I wasn't getting impatient and frustrated with myself, those were fun. And when I was focused, I did well. And then when I started getting annoyed for this reason or that reason, not with the boss maybe itself, then I started doing poorly. So I do think there's potential there, but it just is what it is. Anywho, that'll do it for this here episode of Attack the Backlog. Once again, I am Mark Krishnez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to a monthly Q&A, an occasional watch party, some fancy Discord roles, a private Discord channel, and random drops on the Patreon here and there depending on your tier, of course. Or you could just support me to support me if that is your fancy. That is, again, patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, the Twitch, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is pxsausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci. Bye bye.
It's go time. Go daddy. It's go time. Go daddy.